We want to start off today's class by wishing Mabruk to the Bibis after our beautiful interlude in the last class, and wish the both the Alufs and the Bibis Mazal Tov and Mabruk on the birth of a brand new baby boy. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay, let us begin. So let's just cut in exactly where we are. We are on 2b2. I'm just going to reiterate the last bit very quickly. Okay, the Gemara said as follows. The beginning of the Braita asked the question, and it said as follows: if a person is menachesh, if a person is they're pulling out the weeds, or they are mashke, or they water the land, but they do this pulling of the weeds or the watering. When do they do it? They do it on Shabbat. So there was a machloket exactly what melacha makes it asur. The first approach is right that it's Rabba and Rabbi Yosef. Rabba and Rabbi Yosef argue. One opinion says that it's because we give you tochacha, we warn you for the melacha of choresh, of plowing, and one of the opinions tells us that the warning is because of zorea, because of planting. Okay, those are the two opinions as to what the av melacha, the father melacha of this child melacha is in order to warn. Anyway, the Gemara asked a couple of questions, and the Gemara ended the opinion of Rabbi Yosef. Now, the last thing that we have over here is the last part. Moed Kattan sefa. The sefa says, in the end of the sefa, you see 2b2. Rabbi Akiva omer afa mekayim miklal. You see from here, the Tanakama lav mishum mekayemu. So in a scenario, when a person is planting, menachesh mechape bekelaim, right? When a person is pulling out weeds or covers over the weeds with earth, he gets lashes. Rabbi Akiva said, Afa mekayem. The Gemara says, I don't understand. If it's because of zoreya, then that makes sense, because you're not allowed to plant kilayim. But if you're telling me that you hold that menachesh, or pulling out weeds, is asur because of choresh, because of plowing, we never said it's asur to plow kilayim. It doesn't say that in the pasuk. But according to you, we never said it was asur. Rabbi Yosef says no. Rabba says no. Mishum mekayem. You're right. Because of choresh, there's no isur. But the reason why over here it says that you get malkut is because you're allowing it to stay. So in other words, Rabba is telling you there's an isur by kelayim, number one, to plant it. But also there's a second isur, which is just the status quo. If you have in your field kelayim, this is mine, right?
No.
This is yours? This is mine. If you have in kelayim, in your field, you have a mitzvah to go and yank it out. Just leaving it is asur. There are other things like this as well. That if there's something in the house, you got to get rid of it from the house, even if you didn't put it there. Okay? Now, says the Gemara. So therefore, the Gemara says, for the end of the Braita says, Rabbi Akiva omer afa mekayem. Rabbi Akiva says, well, not just if you pull it out or if you cover it over with earth, but even if you just keep it there, indicating that the beginning of the Mishnah is not because of mekayem. So you just told me, Rabba, that the reason why menachesh is asur is because of mekayem. Comes Rabbi Akiva and he says right after, even mekayem. According to you, he already said it. Gemara answers, Kula Rabbi Akiva. The whole Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva. My tam kamar. The reason why he says af mekayem is he's telling you, menachesh and mechape are asur. Mechape because it's like you're planting, you're covering with earth. Menachesh, when you're pulling out the weeds, it's asur. You know why? Because of mekayem. You want to know why I said menachesh asur? Because afa mekayem is asur. He's my tam kamar. Tam menachesh mechape b'klayim lokeh mishum mekayem. Rabbi Akiva omer af ha-mekayem, even mekayem. Now, says the Gemara. Now, my tam Rabbi Akiva. What is the reason for Rabbi Akiva? The Tanya that mekayem is asur. The Tanya within the Braita, sadecha lo tizra kelayim. Your field you shall not plant kelayim. Now, it's very important to see the pasuk here, because otherwise you'll have no idea what we're talking about. And this is a very interesting Gemara. You see, it's in the inside column in the pasuk, the first one. Et chukotai tishmoru. I want you to guard my chukim. Behem techalo tarbia kelaim. You cannot have your animal crossbreeding with another animal to create a new animal from two different species. Sadechai lo tezra kelaim. Your field, you cannot have kelaim. You cannot plant kelaim. Okay? Let's just leave it at that. So what do we just see? Behem techalo tarbia kelaim. You can't force the animal to impregnate the animal with an animal from another species. And kama of your field you shall not plant kelaim. Says the Gemara, the Tanya, we learn the Braita, I learned from there here that you can't plant kelaim. How do I know that if you just have it in your field that it's asur? Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, "Kelaim sadecha lo." Kelaim in your field? No. Where does it say that? Go back to the pasuk again. And like I said, this is very interesting. Look at the word behem techalo tarbia kelaim. We put a comma after that, and then we read the next line, sadecha lo tizra kelaim, which is how it reads in a straightforward way. Says the Gemara, normally you wouldn't say sadecha lo tizra kelaim. Your field, you should not plant kelaim. You would say, lo tizra sadecha kelaim. Don't plant in your field kelaim. Normally, the action, the verb, comes before the object. Over here, it says sadecha lo tizra kelaim. Why is it doing that? The Gemara is positing, the Braita is saying, so that you'll be able to read the last word of the first part of the pasuk, of the sentence. Kelaim sadecha. If there's kelaim in your field, lo, that's not something that we can abide by. What a fascinating exposition of the pasuk and explanation of the pasuk. So, mikayem minayin Talmud Omar, kelaim sadecha lo. We're taking the kelaim from the behema and we're including it with the sadeh, and we're not even using the word tizra. What is that telling you? That even without planting, just having it in your field is a problem. Gemara continues, Tinan. Now that we've done all of this, now we're going to ask a question on the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, you're allowed to water a field, an irrigated field that's going to suffer a loss. You're allowed to irrigate it on Moed, on Chol Moed, and on Shemitah. Bishlama Moed, when it comes to Moed, when it comes to Chol Moed, I understand Mishum Tirchahu. It's because it's a effort, and therefore a person is allowed to water the field. The problem over here is that there's some tircha, and when it came to a case of loss, the Chachamim allowed you to do this work on on Chol HaMoed. Ela Shvi'it, but when it comes to Shvi'it, when it comes to Shemitah, ben man da'ama mishum zorea, u ben man da'ama mishum choresh, zriya v'charisha b'shivit mishari. So, according to Rabbah, or according to Rabbi Yosef, you both told me that when you pull out weeds and when you water, okay, watering is a tolda of either zorea, planting, or, according to Rabbi Yosef, or choresh, according to Rabbah, plowing your field. On the Moed, the answer is, the whole reason why it was asur because of tircha, and on that we had an answer, if there's a loss, we allow you to do it, just not tircha, yitira, excessive effort. So Moed, I understand Chol Moed. But how are you going to tell me that you could water the field at all on Shemitah? If watering is a tolda, either, right? Remember we said, pulling out weeds or watering the field. The first opinion said it's because of choresh. Second opinion says it's because of zorea. Both charisha, plowing, and zriya, planting, are asur on Shemitah, on Shvi'it. So how did the Mishnah say that you're allowed to do this on Chol HaMoed and Shemitah? Answers the Gemara. Amar Abaye answers, B'Shvi'it Bazman Hazeh. We're talking about Shvi'it, i.e. Shemitah, nowadays, i.e. not during the time of the Beit HaMikdash, when everyone's in the land of Israel. The Rebbe, and it's going according to the opinion of Rebbe. Tanya, because we learned Rebbe Omer, we learned this is the thing of Shemitah, Shemot. This is Shemitah, Shemot. Make sure that you rest on Shemitah. Now let's understand exactly what he's saying. Rebbe says, okay, that Shemitah in this time, i.e. in a time where most of the Jewish people are not living in Israel, like in the time of the Beit HaMikdash. So when we're in Galut, Rebbe says, what does it mean? This is the thing of Shemitah. Make sure you Shemitah on Shemitah. What's the double language? The Torah is giving you two explanations of Shemitah. Achat Shmitat Karka, Achat Shmitat Kesafim. Everybody knows the first law. The first law is when the seventh year comes, you have to let the earth lie fallow. You can't plant, you can't harvest, you can't do all the things that one would do in their field. If it was a privately owned field on Shemitah, okay? But the second thing not everybody knows about. The second thing is Shmitat Ksafim, which means, let's say I lend JC some money, and then the year of Shemitah enters. The halacha is, I can't collect that money.
Right.
So I don't know if you remember, the last time we had a year of Shemitah, everyone was going crazy with the laws of Pruzbul. What's Pruzbul? Pruzbul is a document where you hand the money over to Beit Din, it's not your money, and Beit Din is allowed to collect the money on Shemitah. So it's a way of navigating around Shmitat Ksafim. Why are we allowed to do that? The Gemara says, Hillel tiken ha'olam. Hillel fixed the world. Okay. How did he do it? Bepruzbul. With having this new opinion, this idea, this approach of creating a pruzbul. Why? Because what would happen? Everyone in year 6, in year 5, approached by someone, I need to borrow money for my business, for my house. Right. No one's lending a dime. Right. I'm a year away. I'm 2 years away. So all of a sudden, all the economy ground to a halt. People couldn't buy houses. They couldn't take loans. They couldn't open businesses. So therefore, people stopped lending. So in order that people should be able to continue lending, Hillel came up with a way where you did not need to be worried about Shmitat Ksafim. If that's what you're worried about, you could still lend the money. However, that's the concept of Shmitat Ksafim. Okay? So, Rabbi Yehuda says, when we said this is the thing of Shemitah Shemot, we talked about two Shemitahs and we connected them. One is Shmitat Ksafim, letting the earth lie. The second thing is letting the money that you lent, letting it never be collected after that. In tying the two Shemitahs together, Rabbi Yehuda learns that when there's one, in the time that you have a Shemitah of karka, of land, you also have a Shemitah of money. And in a time when you do not have Shmitat Karkaot, then also you also do not have a Shemitah of money. What do we see? The underlying feature here is that Rabbi Yehuda says that there is a time when there isn't Shmitat Karkaot. He's telling you, when you have a Shemitah of the land, you have a Shemitah of the money. When you don't have a Shemitah of the land, you don't have a Shemitah of the money. When is there not a Shemitah of the land? The answer is, no, he's talking about in the year of Shemitah. The answer is, when the Jews are not in the land of Israel, when there's not so many Jews there. Telling you that Bezman Hazeh, in our times, there is no Shemitah of Karkaot. Says...
There should be there's no Shemitah Ksafim also out of... As the
sorry?
According to that opinion, there should be no Shemitah Ksafim out of Israel.
That is true, according to Rebbe.
Right.
So Abaye says, when our Mishnah tells you that you're able to do this on Shemitah, how could you do it? It's asur. The answer is, it's Shemitah Bezman Hazeh. Shemitah Bezman Hazeh, according to Rebbe, is not, there's no isurim. So therefore, it's not a problem. Okay.
Now, then.
Sorry?
So then what about if it's now, we have you can't have the wines that come from Israel during Shemitah or the fruits. Would it not apply then?
So that, again, this is Rebbe's opinion only. Doesn't say that we hold like Rebbe. Right. But the Gemara is explaining that the Mishnah is going according to Rebbe who holds this opinion. Okay? So we ask the question, how could you be allowed to do it? It's Zorea, it's Choresh. Answers the Gemara. The answer is no, it's going according to Rebbe. And Rebbe holds that there's no Shemitah nowadays. Rava says, now by the way, this does not mean that there's no, what's it called? This does not mean that there's no laws of Shemitah at all. It just means that the laws of Shemitah are not there mideoraita from the Torah. There would still be din derabanan of Shemitah. Okay? But the concept of the Gemara is, since it's midirabanan, The Chachamim were able, since they were the ones that said you have to be keeping Shemitah, they were the ones that also said, listen, if your whole field's going to go to pot, if you're going to suffer a loss, we're going to allow you to do it. So that's why, in the first reason, according to Abaye. The Rava says another reason. Afilu temer Rabbanan. Even if you want to say that the Mishnah is going according to Rabbanan, who hold that Shemitah today is mideoraita. Okay, so there's your answer, Jonah. Okay, so according to the rabbis, the majority opinion, Shemitah today is mideoraita. So how could we say that you're allowed to take an irrigated field and let the water come to it so you shouldn't suffer a loss? It's a isur mideoraita. How could the rabbis do that? Answers the Gemara, afilu temer Rabbanan. Even according to the opinions of the rabbis, avot asar rachmana, the only thing that was asur, that was rendered not allowed, was avot. Toldot lo asar rachmana. What does that mean? Remember, when it comes to Shabbat, we learned this idea. Av melacha is one of the 39 melachot that was done in the Beit HaMikdash, in the temple. Okay, to be able to create the temple. Are there other things that are asur? Of course, millions of things are asur on Shabbat. It's almost hard to find something that's allowed on Shabbat. You're allowed to breathe. You're allowed to sleep. There are very few things you're allowed to do, right? So all the toldot are derivations of the Av. So, like as we said, an example, you stick two things together, even though you didn't tie it, right? It's not the Av. The Av Melacha is tying a knot, right? The Tolda is, why did we say something is Asur to tie it together? It's the bringing together of two things, right? So that would be the Tolda of Kosher, as an example. Many examples like that. That's a Tolada. Is a Tolada midoraita or midrabanan? Midoraita. Okay? So in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, for the Tolda, what would happen? You would have to bring a korban if you did it by accident. They would give you the penalty of, let's say it was Shabbat, breaking Shabbat with witnesses, knowing that it's Asur. There's a death penalty for Shabbat. Mechalea mot yumat. Tolda is midoraita. But, says the Gemara, when it comes to Shemitah, the only thing that we said was Asur in the Torah was Avot, was the father Melacha, not the Tolada. Now, you'd have to prove that, because the Tolada is Midoraita. So even if Shemitah is Midoraita, and a Tolada is Midoraita, why would it be that a Tolada was not Asur on what's it called? On Shemitah? The Gemara answers is fascinating. Look at this pasuk. This is another example where the Gemara is expecting you to know all of Tanakh by heart. So it doesn't even tell you the main part of the pasuk. It wants you to know. Dichtiv, because the pasuk says, "Ubeshana shivit Shabbat Shabbaton." Look in the pasuk on the side.
Yeah.
Ubeshana shivit on the 7th year Shabbat Shabbaton yelaretz. It's going to be a Shabbat for the land, Shabbat laHashem, a Shabbat for God. Sadecha lo tizra. You cannot plant your field. V'karmecha lo tizmor, and your vineyard you cannot prune. Okay. Now. I don't know why it doesn't have the rest of the pasuk here. The rest of the pasuk says, "Et sefiach ketzirecha." It continues on, and it says, all different things in the rest of the pasuk. Do we have the Tanakh here? Yeah. Where's this pasuk? Vayikra 25, right?
Isn't that the end of the pasuk?
No, it's the end of that pasuk. Yeah. Vayikra 25. What pasuk?
4.
25:4. Okay. So check this out. V'karmecha lo tizmor. Okay, so you can't plant your field and you can't prune your vineyard. What's prune? Prune is cutting the branches so that so that it grows better. Okay. Etzefich kitzirecha lo tiktzor. So the aftergrowth, of the kitzir of the tivua lo tiktzor, you can't cut. Vet inven zirecha, and the grapes lo tivtzor. Shabbat Shabbaton Yel Hashem. So it tells us about reaping and picking and planting and pruning, all these different things. Okay? Michti, says the Gemara. Zimira, Zimira is pruning, we already know, is Bichlal Zri'ah. What does pruning do? It helps it grow. What is that a tolda of? Planting. Okay? Bitzira, picking the grapes, Bichlal Kitzira. When we talk about tiktzor, which is the av melacha, so to speak, kitzira is when you cut wheat. What's the equivalent of cutting wheat when it comes to grapes? Picking the grapes, okay? So one Zimira is included in Ziriya. Bitzira is included in Kitzira. Lemay hicheta kitvin Rabbanan. Is the pasuk now going to tell you in each variety of fruit the action of picking it and pruning it and use every word for every different item? Lememra, says the Gemara, genius. The ahani toldot mechayev. We listed specifically some toldot. Why? To teach you that even though on Shebi'it only toldot are asur, only avot are asur, toldot mutar, I'm now going to list you these specific toladot. So you should know that these ones are asur. But achrina, achanayata, lo mechayav. On the other ones, on the other toldot, you are not obligated. Es Gemara, velo, is that the case? You're not obligated on other toladot, on what's it called? On Shebi'it. V'atanya, did not we learn in the Braita? Sadechalot is karmechalot is more. Though you can't plant your field and you can't prune your vineyard. Eli ela zirua v'zimur. All I know from here is that you can't plant and you can't prune. Minayin le'nichush v'leidur v'le'kisuach. I don't know that weeding and leidur and hoeing v'lechisuach and cutting off the weeds, not by pulling but by cutting them. Talmud lomar. How do I know that those are asur? Sadecha lo, karmecha lo. It says your field you can't and your vineyard you can't. Lo kol melacha shebesadecha. In other words, from the fact that it puts the word sadecha lo, like we did before, we're reading it in a different way with the comma. Right. It's as if the pasuk is telling you, field? No. Right? Vineyard? Nope. No vineyard. Right? Any melacha, kol melacha shebesadecha. Velo kol melacha shebekarmecha. No action in your kerem. Minayin. She'en mekarsemin, ve'en mezardin, ve'en mefaskin. How do I know, in a tree, how do I know that you can't, if you're talking about dry branches that are already dried out, or too many branches, or supporting the tree by adding something. Talmud lomar, sadecha lo, karmecha lo, same idea. Nope, field, vineyard, nope. Lo kol melacha shebesadecha, lo kol melacha shebekarmecha. Minayin she'en mezabelin, ve'en mefarkin, ve'en me'abkin, ve'en ma'ashnin be'alilan. How do I know that you can't fertilize, and you can't take out stones, and you can't put dust on it, and you can't, do something to get rid of the bugs? All these different things in the field. Talmud lamar, the Torah says, sadecha, no, sir. Karmecha, lo, nope. So what did the Braita just tell you, basically? You can't do anything in your field. So clear from the Braita that you can't do any form of work, including tolada, on Shemitah. The Braita continues and he says, what about underneath of the olive tree? Am I allowed to thresh underneath it? Or maybe underneath the vines, or maybe I can't fill up if there's little divots in the ground, fill it with water. You're not allowed to make holes, like an irrigation canal, like a moat around the gifanim. Talmud lomar, sadecha lo tizra. You're not allowed to do zirya. Zirya bichlal hayita. The pasuk already said zirya that you're not allowed to do. So how come it again tells you the word ziriyah? It's coming to compare and to tell you, just like when you have ziriyah, and ziriyah is something that you could do both in a field and in a vineyard. So that word ziriyah applies to both. Anything that you do in both a field and in a kerem, so it's a universal type of work, is asur. Anything which is not is therefore permitted. According to this, what do we see that the Braita says? The Braita says that that there's all these toladot that you're not allowed to do. Answers the Gemara, genius. You're right. The Braita says that, but the Braita means that it's asur midrabanan. And once it's midrabanan, we said already before, since the isur is midrabanan, right? Therefore, the Chachamim that told you not allowed to do it are also able to say, in the case of a great loss, we're going to allow you to do what we told you you're not allowed to do. So Rabbanan were able to make leniencies with regards to Shemitah because they were the ones that instituted it. What do you mean? But we just brought a bunch of Pesukim. Sadecha lo, No. The answer is, says the Gemara, something we've seen already a few times. Kira asmachta be'alma. The pasuk is only something that we lean on. What does that mean? So something that we lean on. There's an idea that the Chachamim say something is asur, but then they find like a reference point to it in the Torah. It's not a learning from the Torah, but it's still something that we blame, so to speak, that we connect to a pasuk, but it still retains the law of Eid Rabbanan. Baruch Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.